In a Nuzlocke, any Pokemon that faints in a battle is boxed forever, and I'm gonna try to beat Pokemon White 2, attempting to get all the way to the final secret boss using only electric types. So let me know what your favorite electric type is down in the comments below while you leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. Our story begins on a beautiful overlook in Aspashire City, where I meet up with Bianca, who is here to offer me one of 3 Pokemon. But shockingly, none of them are electric types, so my choice doesn't really matter here. Therefore I just picked Oshawott so that my rival will have a Snivy, which I guess could sort of be the hardest one since grass resists electric type attacks. In any case, you notice that our rival who are named Vilgax, his Snivy is actually at level 6 and not level 5, which is actually a feature of challenge mode. Fortunately for us though, this really doesn't seem to make the battle any more difficult, and the only thing we can do is spam tackle anyway. Then as we're about to leave our hometown forever, our mom gives us a pair of running shoes. Wow, she must really want me to get out of here fast. Afterwards, we were interrupted by this old man called Elder, who's got to be one floor away from knee replacement surgery. We then progress to the ranch where we get our first encounter, a sweet and adorable Mareep. This fluffy piglet will be the starter of the run, and I named her Gwen. Gwen has a gentle nature, plus special defense and minus defense, which isn't bad at all. Next up we have a second rival battle against Vilgax, and since we have the static ability, it's a bit of a hard decision whether or not to use Thunder Wave off the bat. This is because his first tackle could very well paralyze him, and then we could miss out on a free turn of damage. Therefore I decided to just spam tackle. We didn't paralyze it, but with us being on the same level, and he still doesn't use any stat moves, this win is pretty much free. He only takes us down to 23 HP before we can KO him, and winning us the battle. But before challenging the gym, we run into Elder again. His knees are definitely broken now. Sharon is unironically a pretty difficult first gym leader to face, since his level cap is so low and stab buff tackle hits pretty hard, especially since he likes to use work up with it. Not to mention in challenge mode, he adds a Pidove to that team, which shouldn't be too much of a problem, but his elite being level 14 and holding an Oran Berry can be a serious threat. So with him using his only potion on the Power Rat, I went for another Thundershock to bring him to the yellow, before taking him out on the following turn. His second Pokemon is Lily, which outspeed and goes for a work up right away, as I go for a Thunder Wave to paralyze him. This allows us to hit the puppy with Thundershock first, doing about a third. He goes for another workup, thus if he manages to land a tackle next, we'll definitely die from it. Another attack lands, causing his Oran Berry to activate. Thankfully he couldn't move due to the paralysis, so we're safe for now, with one more Thunder Wave shock defeating the poor puppy. His final Pokemon is Pidove, and with no surprise, 2 super effective stab Thundershock, with the last one being a crit, annihilates him and winning us our first gym badge. And with Gwen reaching level 15, she evolves into a Flaffy, which has one of my favorite spellings of any Pokemon name. So clever and so unnecessary. After the gym, Bianca gives us a TM for return, which should prove useful once we have a Pokemon that actually likes us. We then move on to Burbank City, where we find Roxy discouraging her father from chasing his dream to become an Avenger. I mean, who wouldn't want to be one? After exploring the city, it's time to grab our next encounter from the Verbe Complex exterior, which ends up being an Elekid, the reason why we picked White 2 to begin with, since it's exclusive to this game. And Ben ends up having a relaxed nature, plus defense and minus speed. Minus speed is absolutely terrible for a Pokemon that prizes itself on its speed, but I mean, maybe the plus defense will help us live a ground move at some point. Now, the Verbe Complex actually has 2 different areas, the exterior and the interior. In the game's programming, they register as different areas, hence why there's a screen transitions between them, and they also have distinct encounters. So for the purposes of this run, I'm gonna classify them as separate areas as well, meaning we can get a second electric Pokemon in the interior, and that's Magnemite. Goop has a careful nature, plus special defense and minus special attack. Are you for real? That's one of the worst possible nature considering it's a special attacker, and having Magnepool instead of Sturdy? Yep, we got some horrible luck here. And so with that, we're ready to take on the second gym leader against Roxy and her poison types. She leads with Coughing and I lead with Gwen. I hit her with Thunder Wave right away, as we don't want to give her a chance to poison us, because then Venoshock from Whirlipede and Grimer would do double damage. Hence, after getting hit by Venoshock, I'll go for a charge to raise our special defense and power up our next Thundershock, which ends up nearly KOing it, triggering the Oran Berry. And with Coughing only doing 11 damage with tackle, we can go for another attack, bringing her health to the red before a super potion is used. I then employ 2 more Thundershocks to finally take it down, as she landed Assurance on Gwen, leaving her with only 2 HP. So with Grimer coming out next, I'll switch into Goop. And luckily a poison type move was used instead, which we're immune to, letting us to safely enter the battle. I go for another Thunder Wave since Grimer's Mudslap can pose a serious threat. From here, it was just us continuously trading hits, with her doing a passive 12 damage each time while also lowering her accuracy. We did however got the paralysis in twice, allowing us to get 2 free hits, bringing our health to the danger zone. Unfortunately, Goop did miss a strike, where Grimer then disabled Thundershock, but a single blitz with Magna Bomb does ultimately destroy her. Lastly, in comes Whirlipede, who actually outspeeded and hit us with Rollout, which thankfully is ineffective, dealing about 3 HP. So I immediately paralyzed this thing, and the rest of the fight was honestly just very annoying and time consuming. But eventually Goop reached the point where he couldn't keep on going, so I promptly swapped into Ben, who joins the battle without any trouble due to the bug unable to move. And by implementing 2 shockwaves, we demolish Willipede and earn ourselves the second gym badge. After that, we make the mandatory visit to Pokestar Studios, where they want me to become a movie star, so we start shooting the new movie right away. And I gotta say, I think they made the best choice in casting me as the new Scarlet Witch. What could go wrong? After my debut, we head off towards Castelia City. When you just can't stand it anymore, scream at the ocean. Oh well, times are stressful, might as well give it a go. After having all my stress and anxiety relief, Iris the champion invites me as supermodel and movie star to go to the sewers. However, down here we can actually make our way to the Castelia Park, located in the center in this outdoor area, only accessible through the sewers. And from here we can have a 5% chance to find ourselves an Eevee. I named it Kevin, but sadly as part of the rules, we won't be able to use Kevin until we find a Thunderstone and evolved it into a Jolteon. This means that it's finally time to take on our next gym leader, Berg, and his bug types. Since he leads with double, I decided to go into Goop first, as we were resistant to all of his moves. He outspeeded and hit us with a pretty pathetic feint attack. Thus, we retaliated with a super effective stab mirror shot to obliterate him. Carrot Blast comes out second, and lands a weak headbutt, which was also a crit, but it wasn't enough, as I paralyzed it with Thunder Wave. Therefore, this allows us to outspeed and land an attack to bring him just below half. And with him unable to move, we effortlessly finished it off with an unnecessary crit. Leavanny is next, and he can be a bit tricky. He immediately demonstrates dominance by connecting a 55% accuracy Grass Whistle, putting Goop straight to bed. But somehow a miracle happened. We woke up right away and got a Thunder Wave in. It was kinda risky as Magnemite is in range to get KO'd from a crit. I go for another mirror shot to bring him just below half, which causes his Citrus Berry to activate, but thankfully he does get paralyzed again. And with our next attack reducing his accuracy, he missed the potential death Razor Leaf. Of course, Berg then had to utilize a Hyper Potion, as we then decrease his health about a third. Luckily, afterwards we do however get a crit with Mirror Shot to finally defeat him. Finally, he sends out his Shelmet. Unfortunately, we miss our attack as he goes for Curse, lowering his speed in exchange for a boost in attack and defense. An incoming Mirror Shot hits, diminishing his health for a considerable amount as he enhances his attack and defense again. Hence, without risking Goop, I swap into Ben, who comfortably tanks the pitiful Struggle Bug that I was so worried about for no reason. We then followed it up with 2 Shockwaves to take it out and receiving the 3rd gym badge. I then headed to Route 4 where we meet Chorus. He decided to show us his rock collection. Cool man, you keep doing you. We also found a Dig TM, which is going to be very vital real soon. Then on my way to Nimbasa City, I meet some subscribers in Join Avenue, and they got the right idea. You probably should press that button as well. Now that we have access to Nimbasa City, we can get a hidden Thunderstone right outside the Pokemon Center. And so, Kevin evolves into a Jolteon, an amazingly fast and powerful special attacker. I also get another encounter in Lostland Forest, an Emolga. It takes a while to find him because he can only be found in rustling grass with a 10% chance. Welcome to the team, Jetray. He will be immensely helpful for our team's ground type weakness. After that, Ben evolves into Electabuzz, which is an absolutely phenomenal Pokemon. Goop also evolves into Magneton, and Gwen evolves into Ampharos, who is a bit less phenomenal if I'm being honest, but I still love her. And with that, it's come the time once again to take on my arch nemesis Elisa. I go ahead and start out with Kevin, who has the Volt Absorb ability. That way we can block the Volt Switch from Emolga and it can't really hurt us otherwise. Unfortunately, Jolteon only has Thunder Fang at the moment. I thought she was limited to Volt Switches for that, but evidently not. Therefore, Zebstrika's Lightning Run ability absorbs the attack and boosted his special attack. I had taught Kevin Dig, so I decided to go for that. We hit her hard, but then was promptly reciprocated by a Deadly Stomp. Thankfully, one more Dig does finish her off. Elisa Flaffy second, so Kevin goes for another Apparent Dig, which is honestly quite scary since we might get paralyzed here. Luckily, we didn't though. And with her missing the takedown too, one more assault strikes her down. Next up is Joltik, who has the Unnerve ability, and that's pretty much useless against us, considering we can't even hold any items. Not only that, but with the AI going for Thunder Wave, this triggers Jolteon's Volt Absorb, permitting us to gain some health back. I go for another dig, bringing her health to the danger zone, as she landed a powerful X-Scissor. Thus, Elisa then annoyingly employed a Hyper Potion. However, it doesn't matter. With 3 more bites and us withstanding another Bug Stab, we obliterated the Electric Spider. Emolga then returns to the battlefield, so I switch out Kevin for the almighty Ben, who ate the Aerial Ace. So with Emolga spamming the same attack, doing like no damage at all, 3 Swifts at long last does KO'd her, which also proves that with a better Electric type trainer. While leaving the gym, Elisa approaches us with a gang of models, and I thought she was gonna beat us up, but instead, she turns my self-confidence dialed up to 11 by walking down the catwalk with me, as a crowd of adoring fans chant my name and give me compliments. I then started my journey towards Driftvale City, where I found out that the conflict between the new Team Plasma and the old Team Plasma is that new Team Plasma want to dress up as pirates instead of knights. This Pokemon has become attached to me. That's why I'm treating it like a friend and not a tool. Well, too bad you don't have a Clef Key, because then you could have been doing both. Anywho, with Route 6 being open, we can move ahead to Chargestone Cave. Unfortunately, there's actually 2 electric types here, but since this is still a Nuzlocke, I can only catch the first one that I find, which is a Joltik. I named him Feedback, who ends up having an impish nature, which is a bit disappointing, considering Galvantula is a special attacker. I also decided to level up Goop inside Chargestone Cave, so that he can finally evolve into a Magnezone. And since we're about to take on the ground type gym, which is extremely challenging for electric types, I went to the move tutor in Driftvale, who teaches moves for shards. Therefore, after getting enough red shards, we can get Ice Punch, which I instantly taught it to Electabuzz, since he'll most likely outspeed everything in the gym. So with that, it's time to take on the big bad oil tycoon himself, Clay, and his ground types. He leads with Crocorock, and I start with Ben. Thankfully, with the Crocodile not having Intimidate, we can use a single super effective Ice Punch to destroy him. His second Pokemon is Onix, and with no surprise, our attack could not take him out, probably because of his enormous defense, as he then responded by using Rock Polish to boost his speed. And with Onix being very low, Clay then utilized his only Hyper Potion, but we go for another Ice Punch to bring himself back to where it was. Unfortunately, with the previous speed boost, Onix outspeeded us and went for an explosion. Sand Slash is out next, and I need to conserve Electabuzz for later. Therefore, I decided to switch into Jet Ray, anticipating that a ground type move will be used. Then predicting that he'll go for Rock Slide next, I swap into Goop. I go for a stab Mirror Shot, and miraculously we landed a crit to one-hit KO'd it. In comes the Excadrill, the bane of our entire team. And knowing he'll go for Bulldoze, I safely switch into Jet Ray again. Then believing that Kevin can take a Rock Slide to outspeeding him on the next turn for a one-hit kill, he joins the battle. Excadrill's almighty attack however does bring our health halfway, as I go for a dig, dodging his Bulldoze and landing it, which his Citrus Berry then activates. And I think we all know what's going to happen next. A Bulldoze connects and Kevin goes down. Ben comes in for the revenge kill, and with a heavy low kick, Excadrill falls, winning us the 5th gym badge. But it's hard to celebrate this victory, with it coming at the expense of one of our teammates' life. Kevin was only on the team for a short time, but he certainly made an impact. We then beat Chorus once again and became the winner of the World Tournament. After which, before taking on Mistralton Gym, I decided to head to Route 7 first, since we can get a new encounter here and a fully evolved one at that, a Zebstrika which we catch and nickname Accelerate. Accelerate has a jolly nature, plus speed and minor special attack. Definitely the best one for sure. But sadly, the Lightning Run ability wouldn't be that beneficial as it raises special attack. Then after a bit of grinding, Feedback evolves into the beastly Galvantula. He should be quite a help because his bug typing makes him not weak to ground. Anyways, it's now time for the 6th gym battle led by the flying type trainer Skylar. I'm gonna be honest, as I'm sure we could have all guessed, this gym is quite easy, given that her entire team is very fragile against us. It's almost not worth mentioning though, but Ben kills a Swoobat with a single Thunder Punch. For whatever reason, the Quags the Imposter comes out second. She outspeeded us and really dropped her physical attack, but unfortunately for her, she still gets one shot by the quad effective move. So with our attack harshly decreased, our next strike could not one-hit KO the Sigilyph. However, we do paralyze her as she goes for a Psychic, bringing our health halfway down. One more jab to the face without question does annihilate her though. Last is Skarmory, and since she has 30 and quite bulky in terms of physical defense, it took us 5 Thunder Punches to finally knock her out, since it kept getting healed either by a Hyper Potion or a Citrus Berry. But that wraps up the fight, 6 badges down, 2 to go. After defeating Skylar, I used my supermodel privileges to fly over to Lentimos Town in my private jet. From there, there's actually a move tutor that can teach my Pokemon Magnet Rise, which is a move that makes the user immune to ground type attacks, and that will be absolutely essential for the rest of the playthrough. I then take a girl on a disastrous day in the inside of a literal volcano. Upon arriving in a daily town, we're challenged by a rival Vilgax, and I thought this would be a relatively easy battle, and I was absolutely right. After his Unfezant goes for a taunt, I just take it out with a single discharge. His superior goes for a Leaf Blade, and luckily our static ability triggers, causing him to be paralyzed as we deliver an impactful signal beam, and with his speed decreased by 50% by the paralysis, this allows Gwen to finish it off with another hit. Simisear is last, so I'll switch into Ben as he barely withstood an incoming flame burst. Sadly, one Thunder Punch could not take him out, but does bring his health to the danger zone as he too did the same to us. And for some reason, I thought he had quick attack or something, but obviously after looking it up, I was just being too anxious. So Jet Ray joins the battle for no particular reason and takes down the Fire Monkey after using 2 acrobatics. Anyway, on my way to Opposite City, we run into this guy who has a 999 win streak, and we just smoked him. Way to pick your opponents, guy with steel types. The Dark Musician of Village Bridge aren't too bad. Now I summon the Dark Musician in defense mode. Just doing some. Huh? What is that? Oh my goodness, it's a giant. What is that thing? Oh, kill it with fire before it lays eggs. With that, it's time to face the 7th gym leader, Drayden, and its dragon types, which I'm thinking shouldn't be too much of a challenge for us, as I recently taught Ben Ice Punch from a move tutor, who almost knocked out the Druddigon with one attack. And what's better is that we got a 10% chance freeze. This causes his Citrus Berry to set off, restoring some of his health back, but it wasn't enough. With him frozen solid, one more attack KO'd him. Flygon was no sweat at all either, being quad weak to Ice type, so we easily annihilate him. Altaria comes comes out third, and with him also being quad weak to ice, one single attack was all we needed. Last is his ace, Haxorus, and I'm feeling pretty scared, but once I noticed that Ben can outspeed him, landing the ice punch, I was so relieved. However, with him going for a Dragon Dance, increasing both his attack and speed, a strike of terror arises. I was honestly so shocked when Ben still somehow managed to outspeed him and winning us the 7th gym badge. After that, Team Plasma then decided to show the world their offensive power by blasting Opposite City from the giant flying pirate ship. So in order to stop them from continuing this massive destruction, I had to take on one of Team Plasma's 7 sages, Zinzolin. And I don't know what it is with them, but they just picked types that we're good against. So we pretty much just destroyed his entire team. Oh, did I mention that Team Plasma has ninjas? So they're pirates, ninjas, they used to be knights, so we're the Vikings. Secret tunnel! I wonder where the gym leader is. Oh yeah! Yo, what the? Anyway, next up we have a final gym fight, which is against Marlin and his water types. Now you think this would be an absolute walk in the park, right? However, in challenge mode, Warlord now has Earthquake, which promptly drains Gwen's health. Thankfully, we retaliated with a super effective stab discharge, and also being a crit, the humongous whale was fried up. His second Pokemon is Mantine, and since he's most likely faster than Gwen, I swap into Accelerate. Entering the battlefield, he had to take a pretty deadly Scald, but with our speed far superior than his, not to mention Mantine's poor physical defense, a quad effective Sparkle annihilates him. Following is Caracosta. Due to Caracosta having the ability Sturdy, I switch into Goop, withstanding a Scald, which surprisingly did more than I expected. I go for a Discharge, and that of course brought him to 1 HP due to Sturdy, whereas he then responded with Shell Armor, dropping all his defenses in exchange for exponential attack and speed boost. Thus on the next turn, he outspeeded us and used Scald again to bring us to 6 HP. It was way too close, but one more attack does take him down. Finally, we got Jellicent, so I switch into Ben as he hit us hard with Scald, which luckily didn't burn. I then unleashed a powerful Thunder Punch and got the 10% chance of paralyzing it. He gained some health back from the Citrus Berry and then bypassed the paralysis, and delivers a lethal bang, leaving us with only 4 HP remaining. But one more punch to the face, we beat him up, and with that, we collected all 8 gym badges. Yeah, that's right, swim away. After prioritizing my gym challenges over saving the world, I made my way to Team Plasma's ship, where I can pick up a very important item, being the Electroizer. Therefore, by giving it to Ben and then beating up someone's Pokemon, we leveled up to level 53, meaning Ben can finally evolve into the Supreme Electivire, one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. I then find out that Team Plasma is using Kyurem to power the magical pirate ship. They then blast off again in an awesome display, so I move on to the Giant Chasm, where I find the knights bickering with the pirates once again over who has the coolest costume. Then as I intended to free Kyurem from his prison, Zinzolin interrupts me, and I unsurprisingly beat down his team of Ice type with our newly evolved Electivire by spamming Fire Punch. But when it comes to Team Plasma, the difficult fights are only really starting, and now we have to face off the scientist who styles his hair after the planet Saturn. Chorus is definitely a lot more difficult in this fight than he's ever been before. Hence in the end, I decided to just throw Ben out there and try to push through as much as I could. Although his lead Magneton has an Eviolite, which doesn't make things easy, but 2 Fire Punches does manage to take him out. Next up is Magnezone, who can be very terrifying, especially when he's in possession of the life-threatening move Explosion. Weirdly enough, he goes for Flash Cannon on the first turn instead, so we easily got 2 super effective hits to KO it. However, against his Klinklang, who's extremely bulky, Ben most likely won't be able to one-shot it, thus I swap into Goop, since all of his moves are ineffective against us. Even so, he got a crit on us with Giga Impact, meaning he has to recharge on the following turn, giving us the opportunity to land a free discharge to bring his health about half. Another Giga Impact is used, which did not do as much as before without the crit, but this thing does go down to another Electric Shock. His Bohemian was no sweat at all either, possessing all ineffective moves against Goop, therefore dying after 2 Signal Beams, and the exact same thing happens with Chorus' final Pokemon Matank. I'm glad we don't have to deal with Space Hair anymore. And say what you will about guesses, but he's got a pretty go-to gaming setup, if I do say so myself. While taking on the Shadow Trial, Vilgak just decides to stay in there. Do something, you piece of. Next up, we have to go up against White Kyurem, and we actually don't get to swap Pokemon between this battle and the fight against Getsis. But I think I have a strategy that's gonna work, and that's using Goop. Since against his starting Pokemon Cofagrigus, his moveset will be ineffective against us. And with White Kyurem using Ice Burn on the very first turn, which takes a turn to charge up, with the help of the paralysis, we can easily defeat it by using double, super effective stab Flash Cannons. We honestly got very lucky here, but I feel like even if the Ice Burn did land, it probably won't kill us, since it's not very effective on Goop, but who knows. Now we have to go up against one of the scariest fights in the game. I can't tell you how long I had to study his team, and someone simulated the battle in my head, and every time it came up as us having no path to victory. But here it goes, it's all or nothing. The battle starts right away. I go with Discharge basically every single turn, and he hits us with Shadow Ball every single turn. It was just going back and forth, with Cofagrigus getting healed with the leftover, and then a full restore afterwards, but we eventually do put an end to it. Seismitoad comes out next, and anticipating Earthquake will be used, I swap into Jet Ray. I then connected an Acrobatic to bring his health about half, and thankfully with him missing a Muddy Water, one more attack does take him out. Next is the Fierce Hydreigon, but for whatever reason, Gets' Hydreigon is physical, and therefore completely walled by Goop, so I switched him in on the Dragon Rush. I'm not gonna lie, it did more than I expected, thus I need to make another swap. Ben then enters the battlefield, but I truthfully don't know if it was a good plan, as the monster bloodthirsty attack almost took us out. I go for a risky Ice Punch, and it did not kill him, but with another miracle happening for us, we avoided the Dragon Rush, outspeed him on the next turn to finally get rid of the Nightmare. Things only gets worse from here, with Drapion coming out next. I swap back into Jet Ray again, tanking an incoming Poison Fang, and sadly we got badly poisoned, but the static does paralyze him too. Acrobatics does about half, but with him letting another damaging attack, the poison finished us off and losing Jet Ray, the only counter against ground types. So with the tragic death, feedback comes out, and immediately obliterated the Drapion after employing 2 discharges. With Electros out next, who has Flamethrower, I had to switch feedback into who I believe has the highest special defense, and that's Gwen, as she comfortably withstood the Flamethrower. We then traded some hits and even paralyzed that with our static ability. Unfortunately, this is when Despair approaches us again. I'll go for the usual Signal Beam, and unexpectedly, we got the 10% chance of confusing it, but he bypassed it and connected a Crunch to defeat Gwen, meaning we lost another teammate. I send out Accelerate next, and since Guesses doesn't have any more healings, and no one with faster than it and can effortlessly KO it, I go for a Flame Charge to boost our speed even more, which was honestly kinda stupid of me for doing so, as Guesses Toxicroak has Sucker Punch, and that move has a higher priority. I then accidentally used Flame Charge again, as he used Poison Jab on us, which we barely survived with 18 HP. That was way too close. However, with the final spark, we take him out. What an unbelievably difficult fight. We lost Gwen, our starter, and our cute little ground type counter Jet Ray. They were both true warriors, who nobly sacrificed themselves to save the run, the utmost of respect to them both. So with our recent tragic deaths, I made my way to the Seaside Cave, where we look for a 5% encounter Dynamo, and this took forever to find, but we successfully caught one and named it Swampfire, who has a neutral nature. Unfortunately, this is our last Pokemon, since Stunfisk can only be caught after beating the champion, so we're just gonna have 5 Pokemon on our team. I then immediately evolved him into an Electric, and then using a Thunderstone, he evolves into Electros, which is honestly a very good Pokemon, since he has the ability Levitate, our new Jet Ray replacement. We then have to go through the Pokemon badge version of Airport Security to get to Victory Road, and then after some crazy battles in Victory Road, we make it to our final rival fight. But he's pathetically easy, so in the interest of time, I won't even show it, but he does give us the TM for Thunderbolt, meaning I can now finally start using that instead of Discharge for a bit more power. With that, and with as much preparation I can muster, it's time for the Elite Four. Here is our final team, level up to the level cap of 62, to match the aces of each of the Elite Four members. I also like to mention that each Pokemon of the Elite Four is holding onto an item, making this even harder than it already was. But here it goes. Now let's see if these 5 have what it takes to become true champions. First up is Chantel and her Ghost types. For her, I actually thought of a pretty solid strategy, and that's using Goop. With Goop having the Steel and Electric typing, we can resist most of her Pokemon's attacks. Not only that, but this technically forces her to only go for a Shadow Ball, which won't do as much, since Goop has a careful nature, increasing our special defense even more than it already is, allowing us to easily KO her first Pokemon. Golok is next, but for him he's a bit trickier. In order to avoid the incoming Earthquake, I switch into Swampfire, and because Golok doesn't have any super effective moves against us, I'll go for Coil to slightly boost our attack and defense. Thus, we can comfortably tank another Shadow Punch on the next turn, and then retaliate with a powerful Crunch to take him out. Following, Chantel sends out her Chandelure, and I'm not going to lie, but I kinda forgot Swampfire has some disgusting speed stats. But thankfully, she missed the Fire Blast, allowing us to one-shot her. So without making the same mistake against her Drifblim, I swap into a pretty obvious choice, and that's Goop. With Drifblim only having Shadow Ball to attack us with, I think we all know what the outcome is for the rest of this fight. A single stab Thunderbolt vanquish her into thin air, and the exact same thing goes for a Bayonet, and that's 1 out of 4 down, 3 to go. Next up is Grimsley, the Dark type specialist. On the face of it, his team is kinda scary for us. Well, maybe only his Crocodile and Scrafty, that is. He leads with Liepid, so I lead with Goop, and with no surprise, he began the battle with a normal gem, strength and fake out for the flinch on the very first turn. But with his other moves being ineffective against the robotic UFO, we easily tanked the Night Slash and then KO'd it with a single Signal Beam. His Crocodile comes out next, and with the Earthquake approaching us, I promptly switch into Electros to avoid it. And believing that Ben can take an attack that's not Earthquake, he dangerously joins the battle, having to withstand a very damaging Crunch, and one powerful Brick Break was enough to defeat the Crocodile without glasses. What a weirdo. The rest of Grimsley Pokemon stood no chance against our monster, as we outspeeded and a single Brick Break effortlessly annihilated them all, netting us an easy victory. The third Elite Four member is Caitlyn, who uses Psychic type Pokemon. She starts the battle with Mashana, who has a Zoom Lens, boosting her critical hit ratio, so we have to cross our fingers she doesn't pull that off. Fortunately, with her only having Charge Beam to damage us, while also being ineffective against feedback, she is forced to use Hypnosis, which has a horrible 60% accuracy, leading to her missing it, so we can evidently outspeed her on the next turn for the KO. Her Sigilyph was no problem either, going down to a single stab Thunderbolt. Similarly, against her Reuniclus, I go for 2 super effective Bug Buzz to take her out, but she does however connected a Psychic on us, bringing our health to 34 HP. Hence against her next Pokemon Gothitelle, I swapped into Goop, since once again, another victim who only has Shadow Ball. So after many hits going back and forth between us, and Caitlyn even using her only full restore, we finally managed to get the kill, but for the price of our health dropping all the way down to 14 HP and having our special defense decrease too. Finally, she sends out the Metagross, who's extremely life-threatening against us while holding the life orb. So my plan to counter this beast, who has exceptionally high defenses, is to basically stall the battle as much as I can and continuously keep on switching Pokemon while tanking his attack, to the point where his health simultaneously drops so much from the self-damage life orb that I can switch into Ben for the free fire punch kill. Unfortunately, I accidentally attempted to use Toxic, forgetting that he's immune to it, therefore leading to Accelerate's death as he goes down to a Zen Headbutt. This was very dumb of me, but this does allow me to get a safe swap into Ben. He angrily used a detrimental fire punch to destroy this piece of junk metal, and avenging Accelerate's devastating demise, meaning there's only one more Elite Four to fight. The final Elite Four member is Marshall, the fighting type expert. On the face of it, we have no type advantages at all, but I decided to teach the Acrobatics TM to Swampfire. He leads with Throw, so Swampfire comes out and brings it down to a quarter after getting hit by a crit. He gets another crit on us, but one more strike does take him out. Now it's time for the most troublesome Pokemon, Conkeldurr, and assuming he goes for a Hammer Arm, I switch into Feedback. Hammer Arm hits hard, even being an ineffective move, but it does drop his speed. This is also where things gets difficult, with the Flame Orb burning him, indicating that his overpowered Guts ability triggers. I go for a Volt Switch into Goop, since Stone Edge will most likely be used. Thankfully he missed though. I then connected another Volt Switch, allowing Feedback to join the battle again, as he used the Crystal Clear Hammer Arm. However, with the burn still upon him, he finally dies from it. That was way too close, but next up is Sock. So I immediately Volt Switch out to Goop again. It was kind of risky, but I went for another Volt Switch. However, he evidently surpasses in speed and connected a powerful Brick Break on us. Although this lets Ben to safely join the battle. Marshall then utilized a full restore, but with 2 Thunder Punches we destroyed him. Minshao wasn't a problem too. We employed a Thunder Punch and fortunately got the 10% chance paralysis. Darcy wasn't able to move this turn and one more attack KO'd the Karate Weasel. Lucaria is last and he goes down to 2 Fire Punches. A tricky battle for sure, but a manageable one, winning us the 4th and final Elite Four fight. This means we only have one final challenge left to become the champion of Unova. This is technically the second last battle since we still have one more secret fight against a special someone. However, against Iris, it's just 6 Pokemon standing between us and glory. One way or another, our electrifying journey might end here. She starts the battle with an almighty Hydreigon, so I lead with Ben. I go for a super effective Brick Break and we somehow got the one-hit KO. You like to see those high rolls. Aggron is sent out next, and I'm not joking when I'm telling you that I read from somewhere online, it told me this thing had Rock Head, but evidently it was wrong as a quad effective move could not take her out. And with her using Automize, it sharply increased her attack and speed. Iris then used her 1 out of 3 full restore as I go for the same attack. Unfortunately, with her speed enhanced, she landed a very damaging head smash, and with the slight help from the Muscle Band, we barely survived with 13 HP to spare. She sends in her Haxorus next, and since she's holding onto her Focus Sash, the one-hit KO wasn't possible. So I switched into Swampfire hoping she'll go for an Earthquake, but instead, Outrage was used. Therefore, I made another quick swap into Goop, with Outrage being ineffective against us. We tanked another one as she then becomes confused. I go for a Volt Switch, dealing some damage. So when Ben joins the battle again, we could comfortably outspeed the Haxorus, and the single Ice Punch takes her out without the need to worry about the Focus Sash. Druddigon is next, and are you kidding me? Some online website, which should be trustworthy, says that he has sheer skin, not freaking rough skin. Therefore, Ben knocks out the Lego looking dragon before perishing from the rough skin. But against Iris's Archeops, I went for a Volt Switch, with Feedback almost taking it out, and then went into Goop anticipating Stone Edge will be used. And knowing Archeops' moveset is all ineffective against Goop, another victim again, we tank the Pathetic attack and then one more Volt Switch annihilates him. And lastly, we got Lapras. So Feedback joins the battle again. We outspeeded him and connected the Thunderbolt, which we fortunately got the paralysis into. And with her unable to move this turn, it was just perfect, allowing us to go for one final Thunderbolt to finish the job. And with that, we have become the champion of Unova. But our quest isn't over yet, since we still have one final battle against the true champion of the White 2 universe. But before we despair, with Ben and Accelerate gone, I made my way to Navima Town to speak to the great Professor Juniper's dad, Cedric Juniper. He kindly gives us a Super Rod, meaning we can get another encounter. So I then headed over to Undala Bay, where we fished up our new friend Chinchou. I nicknamed her Charmcaster, who has a lonely nature. Probably not the best considering she's more of a special attacker, but it doesn't matter as I immediately evolved her into a Lantern. There's actually another encounter we can get, and that's in this random caravan. I traded a random Ditto to a girl in exchange for her Rotom, who's named Bucky. Oh yes, it's a fellow Avenger. What makes Rotom so good is first off, he has a Levitate ability, and the most important one is that he can change form, which also changes his type. So I immediately proceeded to Route 9 and went inside a shopping mall. And in here, I walked to the storage room, which funny enough, by speaking to some cardboard boxes with electrical appliances in them, this then allows Bucky to enter a washing machine, learning Blizzard and transforming into Frost Rotom. With all the preparation made, our team is looking pretty good. I leveled up the whole squad to match the secret trainer's Pokemon being level 80. So join me for this thrilling battle as I enter the secret house. Inside awaits the one and only, the true champion, Cynthia. This battle battle will truly decide who is the strongest trainer in the whole Pokemon White 2 universe. Let's begin. She leads with Spiritomb and I lead with Goop, and unfortunately for her, Spiritomb only has Shadow Ball, therefore we can easily withstand her attacks. But she instead uses Double Team, so we manage to get both Thunderbolts in to electrocute the Spirit to death. Next up is her Ace Garchomp, so I promptly swap into a perfect counter against this monster, and that's Bucky. Avoiding the Earthquake with our Levitate ability, and then with her missing the Stone Edge, we connected a super effective Stab Blizzard for the one-hit KO. She then sends out Lucario in next, and predicting a close combat will be used, I swap into Feedback, and we comfortably tank the attack as it also reduces his defenses as well. However, I was afraid that his Psychic will kill us, so I use Volt Switch bringing his health to half, and swap into Goop to hold out against the incoming Psychic. Lucario is definitely faster than us, and with him potentially using close combat again, I swap into Feedback, believing we can stand up to another hit, but he somehow got a crit on us, therefore we lost Feedback. It's very unlucky indeed, but with Lucario's defense dropped so much, I send in Swamp Fire. The close combat hit us hard again, but one Acrobatics does evidently take him out at last. Milotic then joins the battle, and with Swamp Fire being so low it might perish from another Blitz, I switch out into the undamaged Bucky, who somewhat held his own against a powerful Hydro Pump. I then go for a Stab Discharge, leaving with half health, and even paralyzing it, but she avoided the paralysis and connected another Hydro Pump, leaving us with 28 HP. However, one more discharge does KO her. Against Togekiss, I kinda forgot he had Extreme Speed, which always goes first, but we got so lucky that he missed it, which I honestly don't really understand considering it has a 100% accuracy, but I'll take it. So I land a free attack before swapping into Charmcaster. Togekiss goes for another Extreme Speed, which does hit this time, but one more discharge, we destroyed him. Finally, Cynthia sends out her last Pokemon, Glaceon. Volt Switch was used to then bring out Goop with an expected Pathetic Shadow Ball approaching us, and with a single stab Flash Cannon, we annihilated Glaceon, winning us the battle and the run. Against all the odds, I completed a Pokemon White 2 Hardcore Nuzlocke with only electric type Pokemon. Overall, it was just a really good time to play through Pokemon Black and White 2 again. Additionally, I want to give a special thanks to everybody that subscribed, as we finally made it to 1,000 subscribers. It really means a lot, and I appreciate every single one of you. And yeah, that's all for me. Feel free to comment down any suggestions for what Nuzlocke we should do next and in which game. And until we see each other next time, goodbye.